We don't finance cruises. We don't finance trips. If we can't afford to pay for the trip at the time of decision to do it, we just don't do it. And so that was one of my sticklers. I don't believe in, paying for a trip when I've gotten home. I'm not paying for Greece, 5 months after I get back.
Welcome to Becoming an Attending. I'm your host, Yohance Harrison, financial advisor, specialist to those in the ER field. When you come to me, though, it can't be an emergency. We're not supposed to have financial emergencies. We're just not. I mean, things happen financially, but I'm not an emergency financial advisor. I'm here to help you prepare so that the emergencies aren't that emergent. But with me today, I have my good friend, my brother, Dr. Fred Kency Jr, MD, and lots of other letters behind his name. This man, he's everywhere. He's at ASAP, he's at AAM, he's at SAEM, he's at NMA, right? You'll be at NMA. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Not this year.
Oh, NMA. I'm sorry, NMA. I invited him. You heard me invite him.
He's invited. It's true. I've gotten all the invites, but okay. The schedule is. The schedule is the schedule, so we're gonna make it work.
Hey, the schedule. I get it. The schedule is the schedule. I get it. Okay, Fred. Can I call you Fred?
Oh yeah, or Earl.
Okay, yeah, either one. Okay, either one. Or I can call you Earl. Can I call you Earl? He gave me his whole government name in his bio. Like, okay, all right. Dr. Kency, as an established physician, I wanted to bring you on to Becoming an Attending today to talk about something that is unfortunately what I'm seeing, and this is maybe just with the clientele that I'm working with. That's why I was speaking to these emergencies as almost I'm to use a medical term, almost an epidemic at this point, with ER doctors facing the psychological, emotional, and physical burnout. And when I start to dig into it with some of these docs, I find out that a lot of it has to do with their lifestyle creep, where, their lifestyle, they're working the extra shift just to afford the BMW payment, or working the 2 extra shifts just to go get a rental property. And they just kind of get caught up in that. Next thing you know, they're burnt out, and they're taking weeks off at a time. And, if they're 1099, there's no income coming in at that point. And it's just, so I was hoping that you and I could have a conversation about it. Let's talk about what the burnout is. And forgive me if I laid it on too thick by calling it an epidemic. I just feel like I'm dealing with it a lot. In my circle, it's becoming a bit of an epidemic. But yeah, talk to us. Well, let's start with qualifying yourself. We all know you're Dr. Kency, but tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming an attending. So from medical school to, residency or fellowship and to attending. How did you get here?
No fellowship for me. In emergency medicine, we're one of those few doctors where doing a fellowship doesn't really add anything to the bank financially. So I didn't really take the fellowship road, even though fellowship is a great thing, especially in academics, whether it's ultrasound or sports medicine or toxicology. Obviously, all those are amazing roads, and all of those, in my opinion, are ways to help relieve burnout, because you're not in the emergency room with some of those fellowships all the time. So that actually is a good helper. We'll piggyback on that a little bit later. But I went to medical school at the University of South Alabama down in Mobile after graduating college at Alcorn State University. When I got into medical school, we had to figure out a way to pay for this thing. Medical school is not cheap, as you all know.
It is not.
It is not cheap. So we had
not getting cheaper either.
It's not getting cheaper. And we're losing some benefits to payback stuff, which I'm pretty sure you've talked about in other podcasts. Had a recruiter from the Navy come down to Alcorn State University, told me about all these beautiful places that I could potentially end up after residency. We could put you in Hawaii. We have places in Italy, and talked about all these amazing locations of, working in the Navy, wearing these amazing uniforms, serving our country. And as soon as I graduated medical school from South Alabama, they shipped me right down to Gulfport, Mississippi. So did not go to all the extravagant locations.
None of the amazing places.
All these
but at least you were at the beach though. I mean it's the Navy, so you're at least on the water.
when the beach and the water are the same color, it's just not as exciting as it could be. It's
Hey,
not a
I'm in
lot.
Texas, so I know what you're talking about. I know. I get it.
So, I took my talents down to Gulfport, Mississippi for 3 years. I served as a general medical officer. I was responsible for the health and welfare of about 700 sailors. We did some deployments to Africa. I took care of guys in Eastern and Western Africa, over in Abu Dhabi, so in the Middle East, down in
Oh, so
Guam.
you did get to see some places. You got
No,
to.
I didn't get to see him. I got to take care of the guys who were already there, so I could see him through some
Oh,
video chats, and we did some dead hops. But the majority of the time, I was stationed in Djibouti, Africa. Took care of some folks in Rota, Spain. We had a detachment out there, so I kind of was managing all of these different medical assets and all these different personnel from my little cubbyhole in 130-degree Africa. But it was an amazing
mm.
experience, both from a leadership standpoint, both from a medical education standpoint, because you learn a lot when you're the only person taking care of a whole bunch of people who are not the healthiest people. You learn a lot. You grow up fast. It makes you a leader really quickly. And I learned leadership from some pretty amazing sailors. And I pride a lot of my growth at being a part of that organization and to being a part of that unit, and to being some of the leaders that I looked up to. Finished my GMO tour, General Medical Officer tour, with the CBs, and came back to Mississippi to do residency at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. So it was a program, very excitingly, that was going from a 4-year program to a 3-year program. So I was a part of the first 3-year cohort, which was good for me, which I was excited to come back to residency, whether it was a 3 or 4 year. My wife was here. She was
Wait,
completely
whoa, time out, time out. I'm sorry, I gotta interrupt you. Wait, it was a 4 that went to a 3, but now everybody's talking about going from 3 back to
going back
4.
to fours. Yeah, yeah. That conversation is deep, right?
More things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, 10 years later,
Wow.
we're looking at going
Wow.
back in the
Okay.
other direction. But
Sorry,
yeah,
I got hung up on that for a minute. As someone, and I'm in finance, but I hear the
oh, yeah,
conversations, and I'm
everybody's
like,
talking
huh?
about it. It's the talk of the town
Yeah,
right now. So yeah,
it
so
is.
the
It is.
program was originally a 1 through 4. I'm sorry, yeah, it was originally a 1 through 4. Then it became, I think, a 2, 3, 4. So people did their second. I'm sorry, the program was initially a 2, 3, 4. So you did a first year in whatever you want to do it in. You could do it in pediatrics, internal medicine, surgery, whatever. And then you would get there in your second year, do 2, 3, 4, kind of like what anesthesiology does and some other residencies, dermatology, ophthalmology, I think. Um, and then it changed to a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it changed to a 1, 2, 3. And so in 2015, I was a part of the first cohort that did a 1, 2, 3, and which was good for me because I'd already done an internship year in the Navy. I did a transitional medicine year in San Diego at Balboa, which is the Navy's hospital in California. And so if I had come back to do 4 years, I would have been technically doing 5 years of residency, which I didn't really care. I wanted to come back to Mississippi. I knew I wanted to do my training here, so I was fine, kind of whichever route we went. Um, and so luckily, God's grace, it became a 3-year program, and I knocked those 3 years out, and then I was lucky enough to uh, get a job at one of the community sites that was not very far down the street. Has an amazing staff. Has an amazing group of people that I work with every day, amazing nurses, ancillary staff, everybody. And so I've been blessed to be able to stay in that position, as well as have a title of assistant professor at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. And so, being able to have both positions, I don't work as many clinical shifts as I did before COVID. And now it's kind of mainly kind of more the educational stuff. So I do some interviews with the medical school, different things like that, which, all these things are kind of things that I feel help me with burnout because I'm
Mm.
not always just in the emergency room. There's so many other facets of my life that are not 12-hour shifts in the ER. I'm able to do other things, mentor young medical students who want to go into every branch of medicine we have. Just kind of, I had a meeting yesterday with a young kid, not young kid, he's an adult. I had a meeting yesterday with an adult gentleman who
A
wants to go
youngster.
into family medicine, and discussing the positives and negatives of choosing residencies, locations, should we have children during this year versus this year? Being able to mentor those minds, and give them some, positive feedback for what they're already thinking and choosing has been a really good feeling for me, and something I feel I need, because it takes my mind off of those 12-hour shifts when I'm in the emergency room, and where it's kind of just pound, pound, pound. I get to actually use my brain to do other things still in medicine, but not as in the stressful, gunshot, stab wound, heart attack, call five consultants type of life.
So let's get into that 12-hour shift mentality a bit, because I mean, most people, if they don't go directly into academics in the
Mm-hmm.
fellowship, even those that do, they're going to experience some of that. I mean,
Yeah.
did you ever have a period where you felt burnt out, where you felt, okay, I can't do this anymore, something has to change?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. A couple times. One during the military time, when I was doing my GMO tour. I mean, you have so many requirements. I mean, like so many requirements. I have to, for 700 people, they're moving in and out. They all have four different bosses that tell them where to be, when to do this, what to do about this, and I have to have my readiness at 95%. So I mean, I need 95% of my entire battalion to be ready at the moment's notice to go. So that means vaccinations, influenza, yellow fever, typhoid. That means all of your PHAs, your periodic health assessments. That means everything medically that can be done. Your teeth, make sure that you don't need any fillings in any of your teeth. And you have to be medically ready to go 95% all the time. And so, that's a lot of stress for, to me, a kid who just got into the military, and sitting down with your CEO every week and saying, my readiness this week is 72%, not even close to 95. And so, what is your plan to get this to 95, Doc? Well, if I can get these sailors to come to the clinic, we can make it shake pretty quickly. But my chief calls his chief, and his chief gives me four different reasons why he can't come down to the clinic until next Tuesday. And I'm doing this for 700 sailors. It was not an
Wow.
easy task to do. So I mean, you get to the point where you're like, every day you're telling your boss, I'm not meeting the metric that you set, and I would love to, but it's just not happening. And then you get the ropes. You learn how to, not manipulate, but you learn how to fix the numbers, because sometimes a patient has gotten a typhoid shot, but the computer didn't register it, and so now the system that does our tracking is not there. So learning how, eventually get to the point where you're like, okay, I have to like manually go in here and look these things up, teach my staff how to go in there and look these things up, because I feel like we're meeting all these metrics, but it's not reflecting in the reports that are being given to my commanding officer. And so once we learn how to really, kind of let the data work for us instead of trying to work too hard to make the data look the way it should look, the numbers started kind of just, doing their thing. Everything looked a lot better. I had more hours at home where I could sleep. And so, the burnout kind of, lessened a lot. And then a lot of it is getting ready for deployment, right? So the deployment is where your readiness has to be at a certain percentage. And so once you get to deployment, it's about maintaining the readiness. So making sure that,
Mm.
most of the things that we do, they're on a two-year schedule, 2 or 3 year schedule. Your vaccinations, your health assessments, all these different things are on a kind of 1, 2, 3 year schedule. So the biggest thing is just keeping that schedule up to date, knowing, letting your having great communication with the people who are in charge in other departments, making sure that things happen the way they're supposed to happen. But once I got that swing, it helped me tremendously, tremendously. Same thing when I came back to college. I'm sorry, college. When I came back to residency, um, you're going to have some burnout there too, because in our residency in Mississippi, when I was the first year, we worked 12-hour shifts, which in a lot of places people don't work 12-hour shifts. A lot of people like to work tens, nines, eights, kind of mixture of. But we worked 12-hour shifts, and as first years, we were working sometimes 18, 19 days a month. And
Oof.
so that's a, yeah. Yeah. Now you're talking about somebody that's already been out of medical school for 4 years, coming back into medical school. I already have a child. My oldest child is 10. So I already got a child. I got a wife. I mean, I'm not just somebody that just goes home with all this free time. Like, I got to get home and, play with the baby, and I got to do this, and I got to be a loving husband. I got to be, so it was very, very stressful that first year. I mean, it's very easy to get burnt out with the amount of knowledge you're trying to ingest, learning these different procedures, learning because you think you know something when you leave medical school, but when you get to residency, man, the water hose is still open. I mean, it's the water hose is still wide open. There's a lot of information that you have to ingest, especially now with that 3-year program. They've taken a year away, but they still got to dump all that education into you in that shorter period of time. The toxicology, the procedures, taking your pediatric rotations, all these different things. So with
So
that,
how did you in residence? Let's stay on the residency for a moment, because
mm-hmm,
I know one of the stressful parts of residency is, again, the time commitment,
mm-hmm,
the mental commitment. Like you said, that fire hose is still open.
mm-hmm,
Um, your other family and personal commitments,
mm-hmm.
but then there's the lack of finance there,
Big
because if you weren't fortunate enough to spend some time traveling the world with the Navy,
time.
um, you may have a few $100,000 worth of student loans out there hanging out, and you're only making what, $5,000-$6,000 a month.
It's pretty low. I was fortunate when it comes to the money side because I had done my military time. I got my GI Bill while I was in residency. So my
Mm.
entire 3 years of residency, I was getting an extra tax-free um, $2,300 a month. So I was a little bit more comfortable than the average resident when it came to a paycheck. And I'm also, my wife had started her chief year, so she was getting paid like an attending. So that was a little bit of a buffer. But but the other 9 of my cohorts didn't have that. And so
Mm.
now they're stressed with the financial portions of residency. So working crazy hours, and the compensation being almost less than minimum wage. So during that time, kind of what helped me with, I would say, burnout is my extracurriculars. I'm from
Okay.
Mississippi, and so we have a lot of outdoor stuff to do. I ride four wheelers.
There's nothing to do outdoors in
Hey,
Mississippi.
all
What
right, come on,
y'all catch
come on now.
fireflies?
We
What
catch
y'all do?
catfish
Y'all
with our hands. What are you talking about? Newport.
exactly, that's what y'all do. Y'all catch some catfish, or y'all wrestle boars. What y'all do in
Hey,
Mississippi? What
you
y'all do
have
in
to. You
Mississippi?
have to. I'll tell you some stories one day about something like that. But
Oh,
yeah, so my time outside of the hospital, how did I kind of decompress? I go fishing. I go fishing a lot. I mean, I got fishing poles in the back of my truck right now with a bucket ready to go at the moment's notice. We ride four wheelers. We go hunting, in the right seasons, deer hunting and rabbit hunting. So I had a lot of things for me that were my decompression. That would, take my brain completely away from that emergency room or anything medicine related, and I can get out there on that water, and it's just like my brain just becomes completely clear, and I am in my own zone, right? So those were kind of things in residency that were kind of like my, let me get out of this emergency room and go do something besides medicine. Let me decompress. Let me not, do this burnout thing again, which I'd already experienced in the military time. Like I didn't want to get back there where I kind of literally just hated coming to work. There were some days in the military, like literally that alarm would go off and I would just be like, what happened if I don't show up today? You think they're gonna send any guards up there to come get me? How many
yes, they
days can
will.
I go before they come and pick me up out this bed and like force me to come back to work? I mean, literally, there were some days where it was tough those first couple of years, that first year at least. Um,
Mm.
but once I learned to kind of um, learn how to decompress, learn how to use other methods to bring in my aura to a point where I was good and I was back excited to do the thing that I loved. Life was very different, and I knew I didn't want to go back to that place. And so I knew that when I mentally started getting a little stressed at work or short at home, that I needed to decompress. And my decompression is outdoors, getting outside. Regardless of how many pages I have to read, those pages are going to be there. They're going to be there. They're not going nowhere. But what's going on in my brain, if I don't fix it now, I'm not going to get those pages done, and other bad things could happen too. So, luckily enough, I had some coping skills already made for my time in the military, and I was able to utilize those skills and put them to work and get some fun things into my life and move in that direction. So,
So how does this burnout? How does it show? How does it manifest in? Well, let's talk about residency. So, did you see other residents that did experience burnout? I mean, did you see people not make it through residency due to the burnout and the stresses that they were under?
Luckily, in my program, we had a lot of help, a lot of advocates. So we did not personally in my program have anyone that did not make it through because of burnout. Um, so we were lucky though, there in the in the different programs, general surgery, some of the more I guess you would say programs where the compression doesn't happen as easily. You may not that probably doesn't happen, but in our program, it was very loving, rewarding. They would even when we verbalized to our program that the 12-hour shifts were kind of tough because we were having to do sometimes 4 days in a row, 7 days in a row, and so they took that information and said, well, what we're going to do is create a hybrid schedule, and we're going to do it for 1 month, and we're going to see how y'all like it. And so we would work 12 hours from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it would transition. The Friday would become 10-hour shifts, and then the weekends, Saturday, Sunday, would be 8-hour shifts. It mirrored the attending's schedule, and so we were lucky that we had people that listened, people that cared, and so it actually, there were changes made based on the things that we discussed that actually I think helped a lot of our classmates, resident mates, not experience a burnout as much as it could have been had they not had someone who was as responsive, that didn't listen, actually took that information and utilized it and actually made the program better.
So I just want to recap a bit here because you were dropping gems here, and I want to appreciate you for pouring your selflessness here, and into the next generation of physicians. Or if you're already attending right now, this is still good information for you, especially if you have other residents around you, which I'm sure you do. Um, but one thing I heard you say is that because of the demands that are required, the education, the physical demands, the taking away from the personal life, the time constraints, you got to recognize that if you're not careful, burnout is coming. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of baked into the system itself.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're able to recognize your methods of decompression, so that's something I want anyone that's a medical student, resident, or physician, you're listening, think about what are your methods of decompression? What do you have that you can, for lack of a better term, escape to? Whether it is fishing or it is wrestling boars. I mean, be careful if you're wrestling a boar, but whatever it is that you can do that can help take you out of the emergency room, out of a place where you're constantly pouring all of your energy into saving the lives of others, how can you take the time to pour back into you? And I encourage you to, if you can't find something, start trying some things. Okay. Try cooking, try photography, try taking hikes, but don't just say, oh, I'm just going to walk around the block. Yeah, you can get bored with that real quick. Or maybe that might be your thing. Or is it reading books? Is it painting? Is it back to wrestling boars? Whatever it is, you got to find that thing that helps you decompress. So that's one. The second thing that I heard that's, I think, as important is your community of leadership. Are you in a community of leadership that is willing to listen and implement change for the safety and viability of the program itself? So you want to know that you've got mentors you can talk to, that you have leaders that you can talk to, and make sure you're talking to them. Make sure you're speaking to them and saying out loud what's going on so that that change can be implemented to make a more supportive environment. Did I pick up what you put down there?
Oh yeah, exactly. And then also too, your outlets will change over time, right?
Yeah,
So
because we
as you
can't
get
afford to
older,
just have the bucket in the back of our truck. We're not.
exactly. So the outlets I had when I was in the military changed from the outlets I had when I was in residency, and now I don't hunt as much as I used to. I still fish as much as I can, but now I have another business. I have Kency Medical Services, which we specialize in doing. If you're a part of a church, he wants to come and teach your church CPR. If he wants to come teach some students in your Sunday school CPR. I contract with some EMS and nurses throughout the city, and we will come teach CPR to your classes. We sometimes get grants from people to pay for those classes. Sometimes those are paid directly to us from the organization that we're teaching. We also do medical marijuana certifications for the state of Mississippi. We've been doing it for about 3 years now. We do expert witness documentation review of things. And so now I've been able to go from working 15 days a month in an emergency room to working 10 days a month in the emergency room. And so how has that helped me on burnout? Tremendously. Instead of working 7 days in a row at any hospital, at maximum now I try not to work more than 5 and sometimes even 4 if I can, because now I actually have other things I do outside of emergency medicine. So now I'm not doing the same monotonous thing. I haven't been to work now in like today. I work tonight, but I haven't been to work before tonight in like 9 days. And so I'm hoping I remember my passwords when I get to work. But because I have so many other things I do, whether it be organizational medicine, my clinic, whether it be teaching CPR to kids, whether it be teaching ATLS, it's you don't get burned out as quickly because now you got the variety is there. So one day I'm doing cannabis certifications, one day I'm in a lawyer's office reviewing a case and telling them how that doctor was an amazing doctor, and there's no way that this guy should be sued for what he did. The next day I'm, in my cannabis clinic. The next day I'm teaching CPR. The next day I'm at work in the ER. So because I have so much variety in what I do, the burnout is less likely to happen. I don't get tired of going to work anymore. I actually enjoy it because I get back to work and they're like, Doc, where you been? I'm like, yeah, I've been in Malta. I've been in Greece and I've been in Miami. I've been in DC because
We've
now
been in
these things
Miami. Yes,
allow
we
me to.
were.
I know, right? These things allow me to travel. They allow me to do more things that actually bring me joy, which my job does bring me joy, and I'm very grateful that I have a job that brings me joy. And I want my job to continue to bring me joy for many more years because I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. But in order for it to bring me joy for many more years, it cannot be the sole basis of my life. I have to have other things that bring me joy as well. And by doing this, by allowing myself to be in these different little pockets or packets throughout my life, it allows me to, keep the joy I have for the emergency room going because when I go back tonight, I'm excited to be there. I'm excited about who I'm going to be working with. I haven't been looking at the same person for the past 12 days, 12 hours a day, right? I haven't seen them in 2 weeks. So it's just like, a family reunion. When I go back to work, people are excited to see me. I'm excited to see them. I'm excited to get back to the work. And to me, that's what's going to keep me in this job much, much, much longer.
Indeed, indeed. Well, thank you for that education session on burnout, and congrats to you, of course, for being able to navigate that. Some organically, some from like you said, the mentors that you had, but knowing thyself and knowing what you need in order to be your best, to show up for all of the people in your life. I want to transition a bit because I wanted to talk about lifestyle creep a little bit. So I mentioned that earlier, where I'll see doctors that will commit their shifts based on the lifestyle that they're trying to live. They'll get offered that first job, and they go from making $5,000-6,000 a month to $30,000-40,000 a month, and immediately they buy the BMW, they buy the house and the rental house, and they get married and they start having some kids if they haven't done that already. And then they want more, and so it's like, oh, I can just go pick up a shift over here, I can do this over here. And so first, I know with the military background, you may have been a little bit more disciplined, but did you and your wife ever find yourselves in a position where that lifestyle creep was starting to take over? And if so, how did you make those adjustments?
So, so I guess this is kind of a yes and no answer. So
Okay.
there are certain things in our lifestyle that we did jump the gun, maybe. There's other things that
Oh.
I was very disciplined and I was like, no, nah, we ain't doing that. So the jumping in the gun, we when I finished residency, we were on our third child. So in those 3 years of residency, we came 1, 2, and 3. So we finished residency in 2018. The third child is born, and we're in a 3-bedroom house that's kind of small, and they all have a lot of stuff. And so my wife wants a bigger house. What's the first thing I tell people when I'm educating them about graduation? Don't buy a house after graduation. Don't buy a house after graduation. Give it a year. Live in the same home you've been in for the first year. Stack some money. Maximize those retirement plans. Pay off as much debt as you can, and then look into getting a more comfortable home. But we didn't do that. I didn't take any of my own advice. I went straight to my realtor and was like, my wife has said that we got to move out this house, and I'm not gonna get no sleep until she gets another house. And so one of the things that I did that I did not advocate for at all is that we did buy a house as soon as we graduated from medical school, which wasn't terrible for us because having gone through my military time, having getting extra money during residency, my wife wasn't attending at the time for the next 2 years.
And you got a VA, and you got a VA loan,
and I had a VA loan.
Yeah,
so we were in a position where I still didn't want to do it, but I wasn't sleeping good at night because it hadn't happened yet. So we were gonna have to make it work. And so we did buy what I consider my very long home. I'm going to be here for quite some time. Things that I did not give up on is that I wasn't going to buy an expensive car. I had right now I drive a Dodge Ram. It's a very basic truck for me. So certain things that I was not going to get crazy with. We don't.
A Dodge Ram is a very basic truck. Yeah, that's
very basic truck. Very basic truck. Yeah. And so we don't do trips on credit. And so if we can't afford to pay that trip ahead of time, so plane tickets, we don't put those on credit cards. They have to be paid over time. We don't finance cruises. We don't finance trips. If we can't afford to pay for the trip at the time of decision to do it, we just don't do it. And so that was one of my sticklers. I don't believe in, paying for a trip when I've gotten home. I'm not paying for Greece, 5 months after I get back from Greece. That just
say it again for the people in the back. You don't what?
That's just one of my things. I'm just
no. I need you to repeat that. I'm not going to pay for a trip.
Greece 5 months after I get back from Greece. I'm
not paying for a trip after I get home. Man, that is
ain't gonna happen. So that trip's gonna be fully funded.
I'm using that.
And stuff. But yeah, that trip's gonna be fully funded before we ever get on a plane. And so that's one of my that's just one of my things when it comes to travel. I love to travel, but that's one of the things that I don't give up on. Like I don't. There's no give on that. If we can't afford to pay for everything, I would love to go to Bora Bora. Love it. It's my wife's kind of bucket list trip. She wants to go to Bora Bora. Bora Bora is $10,000 for the week for where she wants to stay.
Yeah, that's just where you stay. You haven't got on the plane yet.
That's not the plane to get there. So until we got that $17,000 just sitting in an account that doesn't, after retirement account's fully funded that year and blah 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 and blah blah blah, we're gonna be holding off on Bora Bora.
I held off on Europe for 5 years. It took us 5 years to do Europe the way we wanted to do it, and I leave next Friday.
That's what I'm talking
about.
But
it was 5 years worth of. So we didn't use any of our American Express points for 5 years.
That's what's
and
up.
I'm taking family of 4, first class.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I just got the last little hotel we need to get. I had enough points left over for that hotel too. I was like, oh, look at that. Now it did take some money out of pocket, of course, but still, no, we refused to finance. So the way I used to say it is that I don't want to pay for something that I already pooped out.
Yeah.
So that's how I think about the credit card. Like I'm financing some food and I'm paying for it and I've been flushed it down the toilet weeks ago. But the way you said it, I don't want to pay for a vacation after I get home. Amen.
Yeah, I can't do it. Can't do it.
That's so
good. And so that's one of the things that I don't give on, right? And so a couple other small things too like that where we don't give, these are things that boom, we're going to do. These are things that boom, we're not. We're going to, our retirement accounts, my wife works for the state. So her retirement account is taken out of her check before she even gets paid. Mine, I do at the end of the year. But I say, we're going to put in this percentage. That's going to happen every year. If that means that we can't go to a Cowboys game, which I love them Cowboys. If we can't go to a Cowboys game.
You would mention them on this podcast. Man.
Got to. Always got to have a Cowboys in there. So if I can't make it to a certain football game or a certain basketball game or a certain cruise, I'm okay with that. Certain things are going to get done every single year. unless there are some dire circumstances happening that prevent us from doing it. Fully
Well,
funding
if you want to
vacation.
find yourself, I'm sorry, if you want to find yourself, if you can fit it into the budget, I am planning to attend one Cowboys game this year, but it'll be in
All right,
Charlotte,
now
North Carolina, when they
I'll
play
be there.
my Carolina
I'll be
Panthers.
there.
All
I'll
right,
be
you'll be
there.
there. All right, I'm counting on you
Yeah.
being
So
there.
one of my classmates from residency is he lives in Carolina, lives in North Carolina, on the Virginia North Carolina border, and we went to the one not last year, but the year before last. So this is the third year
Okay,
in a row. Third year in
third
a row
year
that
is it?
we at
Yeah,
Carolina, and we
yeah.
won it both times.
That wasn't part of this interview. That wasn't
That's,
one of the questions that I had here. You just be
hmm
offering up extra
Oh yeah.
information.
And
All
tell
right,
you,
now,
and
well,
the way that worked last time is that I literally flew up that morning and then flew back that night. Like we were like, we're gonna make this
oh yeah,
game,
yeah. That's
and
how I go to Carolina games. Yeah, no, I will fly to
oh, yeah.
Charlotte at best, depending on the time of the game.
Yeah.
But if it's a 1 o'clock game, maybe I'll fly in the night before or I'll red eye, get to
hmm
Charlotte, get my car. I go to the same place for breakfast every time, go to the game, have fun at the game, maybe go to a bar or two with a friend, and I'm back at the airport by 9, 10 o'clock at night. Back home.
hmm And
Yep.
this helps my
Yep.
burnout because these are the things that I enjoy doing. Cowboys
Yes.
games. I mean, this is
Yes.
one of my things. This is a decompression thing for me. It's already in the budget every year. I have
Yep.
season
No, my
tickets for
wife, that
all
she
the
don't even argue it. She don't. I say, hey, this is the games I'm going to. She's like, bye. I'll see you later. Because she
exactly.
know that's me. That's if I don't get that time, then
hmm
as I was saying earlier, I don't have the emotional capacity to talk to my clients about their financials. Like I have to refill my own cup before I pour into theirs. That's what it
Exactly.
comes down to. I've got to do that
Exactly.
part. Got to do that part. All right. So, any closing thoughts on this lifestyle creep? And I want to speak specifically because this is going to air in the next few weeks. We've got dozens upon dozens of residents that are graduating or about to graduate now. They're all signing their contracts for that job that's not going to start until August. They're going to have it's so cold blooded how they do y'all, man. You graduate in June, your job doesn't start to August. Like, what am I supposed to do for money in July? Figure it
Oh
out.
yeah.
Like,
My,
there's
my
no
biggest
there's no other profession that
yeah,
treats
it's
people
crazy.
this way.
It's
It's
crazy.
crazy. It's like, figure the summer out. I mean, I know I have residents right now that I'm in conversations with, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how do I pay for my apartment for the next 3 months? And they got to,
Okay.
they're taking private loans and stuff like that just to pay for their apartment. It's like,
Those
this is
interest rates are
crazy,
crazy.
crazy interest rates.
Crazy.
So for those that are about to go through this transition, if you could give them your top three on just from a financial literacy, financial advice standpoint, what would be the top three things you would say to a resident that's graduating this month?
Prepare financially for the next 3-4 months. Obviously, when those checks stop, look at the things that you spent money on for the past 3 or 4 months that were not necessities, and just cut them out. You can turn them back on later.
Yeah,
Do
you
you
don't need
need
Netflix for 3 months. You'll be fine.
do you need Netflix? Do you need
Yeah.
Netflix plus Hulu plus Amazon Prime plus? If you don't need,
Your cable, no, what is it? Your subscriptions combined. I am
yeah.
cable.
Oh yeah, I mean it's crazy.
Yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
the financials you spend on that is crazy. Decrease the amount of money you're spending outside the home. You know,
Mm.
it is crazy. In my house, we will go and make $300 in groceries, and then I will see DoorDash pull up 2 hours later, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what was the reason for buying that grocery? We're gonna order DoorDash. So, decrease the number of times that you're spending money on things that you don't need to spend money on. This is a great time to pull out that old Hello Fresh thing at the corner that you used for 4 months, 2 years ago, and then whip those recipes back up to save some money on just expenditures in restaurants and such. That helped us tremendously during that kind of transition period. Um, we a huge drawback on how much money we spent on takeout and things like that, and that saved us hundreds of dollars. I mean, you will not be surprised. It'll be very clear about how much money people spend on restaurants, dining out, dining in, and just 2 or 3 weeks, you will save so much money, and that you can use that money to actually pay the bills that you need to have paid, which is the most important thing. Also, look into once you graduate, that means those loans are getting turned back on for repayment. So know when those dates are. Because when you graduate, they know the date. You don't have to tell them. they already know when you're graduating, and so
It's
you're
like
gonna
they
get
get
a
an alert.
note.
They're like, Fred graduated. Yeah, Fred, yeah, he's done. He's done. So does he have a
Exactly.
job? Who cares? Send him a bill.
With the things that are happening in the new administration, we no longer have some of the loan forgiveness and the loan reduction programs that we once had that were abundant. And so now, when it's time to pay the piper, it's time to pay the piper. And so you want to make sure that you're financially ready when those loans get turned back on, because they're going to give you a grace period, but it's not going to be 12 months. Pretty quickly they're going to want their money to start getting repaid. So be very aware of what those dates are. You don't want them to kind of surprise you where you've been kind of tailoring back. You've kind of got this little piggy bank of storage. You're ready for the next 3 months, and then you get a bill from Sally Mae for $6,000. You
Oh,
don't let that be a
let me tell you a
surprise.
funny story. Dealing with this right now. Right now, have a client that, and she's, I guess, 9 months into being an attending now. So this happened last summer. So her student loans were going to her mom's house,
Mm,
and she wasn't aware of her repayment period. But in her
mm,
head, she was thinking, oh, because of the COVID and deferral, everything's going to be all right. She
mm.
forgot that one of her loans was private,
Oof.
didn't make the payments on that private. And it
Credit
wasn't
card,
until they were
credit,
like, oh, credit got crushed. And she's
credit
like,
killer.
Mom, what's going on with the mail? It's like, oh yeah, you got a stack over here. Been getting all these bills from student loans. I've just been setting them aside.
Huh, the credit killer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're fighting it. We're saying wrong address, what have you. We're trying, but she
Mhm.
doesn't really have a leg to stand on, and her
Yeah.
credit score dropped like 200 points.
Oh, it
Yeah,
drops quickly. It is
real quick,
slow to
and
return.
takes so long to return. Yes, sir.
And when you're talking
Yes,
about, even
sir.
if they don't care about, I mean, they care about how much money you're making in the future. But if your credit score is horrible, they don't even get to the amount of money you make part,
No,
because you've
no.
already shown that even with some money, you're not responsible at paying your bills.
Yeah, they're like, we don't
So
believe you. Mm-mm.
yeah, so when it comes time to buy that home, to buy that car, it is exponential, the difference in monthly payment and total payments of things when your interest rate is 2% versus interest rate being 9%. It is
Amen.
a huge difference in the
Oh yeah.
total cost of those products. So what I can tell you is that go to FAFSA, look at all the loans that you have that are out there before you graduate, because they're going to get activated shortly after. Know who services those loans, and then contact them so that you know that when those loans are going to start into repayment, so that you're not tricked and you're not fooled about what's going to be due and when it's going to be due. Because I've seen a lot of people get in trouble, and if you get hurt badly from a credit standpoint early in residency, it's going to cost you hundreds of $1,000s in the long run. When you go buy
Amen.
that first home, instead of getting a 4% interest rate, if your interest rate is 8 or 9% because of your credit score, that 4% difference in credit percentage it is tough over
Hundreds of
30
thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've
over
seen it.
30 years. And
I've
that
seen
that
it.
money that you could have saved could have been rental properties, could have been a second business, could have been investments into this. I mean, so we don't want to throw away any money that we've earned, because you worked too hard to get here to
Way too
earn it,
hard.
way too
Way too
hard.
hard.
So
Way too hard. All
yeah,
right.
that,
So we
that would be
said, so we had three.
my
So
three.
one was look at your expenses over the last 3 months, 4 months, plan for the next 3 months, cut out everything that's discretionary. If you can, cook at home, go to those HelloFresh recipes. I'm
Mhm.
still laughing about that. I'm thinking we have a little drawer that has the old,
we do,
old Hello.
we do
I'm like,
too.
oh, we do got some recipes down there.
Oh yeah, that's our
You got half of the stuff in your pantry
already
already
there,
because you
already
bought the
there.
whole thing of oregano and only used it one time, so it's in there.
Exactly.
And then number two is and I like what you said, Dr. Kency. I like, because you said log into FAFSA,
hmm
not Mohila, not Nelnet, not it. Go to the source. Go to Sally, who used to be Sally. It's not Sally anymore. But go
Yeah.
to FAFSA. FAFSA will tell you who your loan servicers are. But also remember, if you borrow directly from your school, that's not going to show up on FAFSA. So if you got a loan directly from your school, you have to go to the school to negotiate that. And usually they don't negotiate. They're like, nah, you don't go here no more. Payments due.
Yeah.
So
8.9%. Bring it.
Yep. Bring it. All right. So number 3, what would be the number 3 financial tip for those graduating residency this month?
The checks are going to change. Don't let it go to your head. Stay responsible on how you spend it.
Well said. Don't let it go to your head. You earned it, yes.
Yeah, you didn't earn it, but it leaves.
Don't let it make you.
Bracket, the amount of money they take out of your check today, it's going to be very different than the amount of money they take out of your check in 4 months. So
you made the money. Don't let it make you.
Exactly.
Don't let it make you. So indeed. All right. If anybody wants to find you, tell us where they can find you, sir.
I'm on all the social medias. Fred Earl Kency Jr. is my name on Facebook. It's Dr.Freddie, FREDDIE Earl, EARL.
Oh, it's been there this whole time, and I never recognized it. Okay, I didn't even know the Earl was there. All right.
Oh, yeah. And then from an email standpoint, it's KencyMedicalServices.com. KencyMedicalServices@gmail.com. So always happy to talk. You know, after we did this last time, I had people reach out about different financial tips. I'm like, well, I'm not an advisor of finances, but I can tell you what I did and the things that worked and that didn't. But then, well, Yohance is the guy that teaches you how to start fresh and keep it growing.
And full disclosure, I am not his advisor. He has an advisor already. It's not me. He has one. I'm like, great. I'm glad you got one. So last tip number 4, coming from me, or my one tip, get some help. Find a qualified professional that can help you. I can't help everyone. Feel free to reach out to me if we can make our schedules align. Great. I want to help you, but it doesn't have to be. Find a qualified professional, someone that's a fee-based financial planner, preferably, because then they're not just going to sell you products. I'm not saying products are bad. It's just that at this stage you probably need some planning. But yeah, get some help. Don't just rely on ChatGPT. Get some help from a professional. So with that, thank you, Dr. Freddie Earl Kency Jr. for joining me again. For those of you that picked up on that, he was on the Money Script podcast a few years ago. So if you want to, we'll put a link to that episode if you want to go back to that. But thank you for spending some time on becoming an attending and helping those in medical school transition to residency, and residency transition to being an attending, and from attending transition to a successful ER career. We'll see you next time.